23. 7:01. Thank you. Here are the resumes. And I would just like to ask everyone to please stand. For
the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Lori, roll call, please. Thank you.
Mayor Linehan,
Here.
Councilor Page,
Here.
Councilor Kendall,
Here.
Councilor Martinez,
Here.
Councilor Pittman,
Here.
Councilor Sheldon,
Present.
and Councilor Smith.
Here.
Thank you.
All right, thank you very much, Lori. On the consent agenda, I'm going to pull the proclamation for October 1st through 7th, the 2023 is Banned Books Week. We'll have that after the consent agenda. So to approve the consent agenda, I'm looking at the approval of tonight's agenda, the approval of September 18th, 2023 City Council minutes, and resolution number 2245 authorizing the city manager to execute forms and docs for obtaining federal financial assistance for the city of North Plains. Do I have a motion? Are there any corrections to the minutes?
I'll move approval of consent agenda items A, B, and D.
I'll second that. The first and the second, any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Nay. Hearing none, motion carried. All right, so I'd like to ask Robin to come up and explain a little bit about the Banned Books Week. And then I will read the proclamation, and then we'll just take a moment for a couple of photos. So, Robin.
Thank you so much for allowing this time. The theme for Banned Books Week 2023 is Let Freedom Read, and it draws attention to books that have been targeted for removal or restriction in libraries. The content varies over time, but the reason remains the same: a belief that individual adults and parents cannot be trusted to choose their own reading material or that of their children. Instead of empowering readers and parents, censorship and book challenges restrict freedom. Libraries affirm the right and responsibility of parents to guide their children's library use and the right of Americans to choose their own reading material. To quote Lisa Tattersall, our WCCLS manager, the strength of our democracy rests on the ability of people to hold different viewpoints and disagree with each other, rather than seeking to close off access to viewpoints they find objectionable. ALA documented 1,269 demands to censor library books and resources in 2022. That's the highest number of attempted book bans since ALA began compiling data more than 20 years ago on this. Of the record 2,571 unique titles targeted, most were by or about LGBTQIA+ persons and Black, Indigenous, and people of color. The current situation for Oregon libraries reflects national trends. The state library reports that from July 2022 to June 2023, more book titles were challenged in Oregon than any other year since tracking began in 1980. There were 93 individual materials challenged this year. Over to Mayor.
Thank you very much.
I have some swag here if I didn't get any.
All right, so Banned Book Week proclamation from the city of North Plains this evening on October the 2nd, 2023 is as follows. Whereas the freedom to read is essential to our democracy, where the freedom to read is essential to our democracy, and reading is among our greatest freedoms. And whereas privacy is essential to the exercise of that freedom, and the right to privacy is the right to open inquiry without having the subject of one's interest examined or scrutinized by others. And whereas the freedom to read is protected by our Constitution. And whereas some individuals, groups, and public authorities work to remove or limit access to reading materials, to censor content in schools, to label views as controversial, to distribute lists of books or authors considered objectionable, and to purge libraries of materials reflecting the diversity of our society. Whereas both governmental intimidation and the fear of censorship cause authors who seek to avoid controversy to practice self-censorship, thus limiting our access to new ideas. And whereas every silencing of a hearsay, every enforcement of an orthodoxy diminishes the toughness and resilience of American society and leaves it less able to deal with controversy and difference. And whereas Americans still favor free enterprise in ideas and expression, and can be trusted to exercise critical judgment, to recognize propaganda and misinformation, and to make their own decisions about what they read and believe, and to exercise the responsibilities that accompany this freedom. Whereas intellectual freedom is essential to the preservation of a free society and a creative culture. Whereas conformity limits the range and variety of inquiry and expression on which our democracy and our culture depend. Whereas the American Library Association's Banned Books Week, Let Freedom Read, is observed the first week of October 2023 as a reminder to Americans not to take their precious freedom for granted. Whereas Banned Books Week celebrates the freedom to choose or the freedom to express one's opinion, even if that opinion might be considered unorthodox or unpopular, and stresses the importance of ensuring the availability of those unorthodox or unpopular viewpoints to all who wish to read. Now therefore be it resolved that I, Mayor Terry Lenahan of the City of North Plains, Oregon, do hereby proclaim October 1st through the 7th, 2023 as Banned Books Week in the City of North Plains, and I further resolve to encourage free people to read freely now and forever. We also have this is a very rare moment when we have the library board with us here, all together in one room. And do we have anyone online as well?
Yeah, Donna.
We have 6 of the 7.
Wonderful. And while we have you here in this vicinity, this space with us, I just want to give you a voice. Do you have anything that you want to say to us? And please stand up, Larry. Hi. Would you mind using the microphone so the folks online can hear you too? Thank you.
I think I turned it off.
There's a button here somewhere, right? Oh, nice.
Good to see you.
Hi, Larry Gonzalez, former where you're at. I'm on the library board. Just wanted to say that this is a great thing. Thank you very much for supporting freedom of reading and digital and book literacy. Wonderful thing. I know that the county is doing something similar, so I feel that we're in a good spot. I also want to make sure that people don't misinterpret what's happening. We encourage freedom of expression, right? And people with differing views being able to talk to each other and have discussions and discourse about, what their ideas are, and share and debate and think critically and argue ideas freely without people putting, some ideas to the side, like you can't talk about that. It would be really, really tough to see our kids, growing up in a world where there are things that were off limits and they couldn't talk about it with their parents or their peers or somebody that supported them. So thank you, and thanks for the support. And it's bigger than books. And so, thank you very much.
Thanks, Larry. Good to see you.
Yeah.
Anyone else from the board?
Is it on?
No,
Is it on?
no, push it up, push the button up. So,
Okay, all right, green light should come on.
Can you hear me? Is that right? Is
put it up.
that right?
Yep.
Perfect.
I'm Tim Chalik. I'm the chairman of the library board, and I just wanted to thank the council for your support. I know when things can be tough financially as we go through this, and you guys have stepped up and really supported us and support the library. And I want you to know that everybody on the board really appreciates your support, and we hope the community does too. And we're real thankful that we get an opportunity to grow the library, and some things are moving forward in the county to help finance the board. And really thank you for the city, because I know you're under a lot of financial pressure. We appreciate your support. So thank you very much on behalf of the board.
Thank you, Tim. Anybody else? Well, I always think about our little library, and we're always like that little library that can and does well. And I just have always been very mindful of what you do for our community. And the outreach, not just within the city limits, but I know that the outreach is much greater than that. And you know, we have one of the best groups, so I'm very grateful that you all are watching after all of us and our community and our children and our families. So thank you very much. At this time, I know Robin brought some books, and we'd like to take a photo. So I asked all the counselors if you would join me, grab a book, and I think Robin is gonna take a photo, or someone could take a photo, because I think Robin should be in the picture too.
Lori said she can help me think. I just brought a variety of some of the most frequently banned books from the last decade or so.
You have it open?
And so,
You?
you feel comfortable holding on, you don't have to.
Are you gonna scroll as you talk? Yeah.
Okay.
Once you pull it up, then I just hold it nice and slow. Yeah.
Okay.
A couple of us, right?
Garrett. Garrett.
Okay, call people back, you guys. Okay, we'll get everybody in. I can tell you, let's see. This is about, you know, yeah, probably know what's going on with that. Here we go. It's very exciting. It's gonna go for this a little bit more. So we're gonna go this way.
They want to read the book now. I've been looking for this book for days at the library.
Everybody look up here. There you go. Robin. Yep, this switch. I'm just gonna start snapping, and you guys, you can pick out, okay, and I got a couple of individual ones. So we have everybody in. Okay, thank you very much.
Stand still.
Thank
No,
you.
it'll be out there.
Robin, could I ask you, just the microphone real quick? We had a question from online. Somebody would like to know if the community could get a list of the books that are banned.
So, we can, if you finish the library, we can give it through, I mean, they have a list by decades since they started keeping track. I brought the ones from 2010 to 2019 here, the top 100. But yeah, we have, oh, and then I have some just little graphics. These are the top ones from 2022. So we have whoever's online and is interested, just stop by the library and we can give you the list. We have a display right now.
All right.
Should I leave this up here?
Yeah, that would be great. Thank you very much. One other proclamation for the month of October, that came in, a little late, I think maybe today or,
Yes.
yes,
This morning.
right, this morning. And I want to make sure that we do, recognize that the month of October is Domestic Violence Awareness Month, and I would like to read a few of the whereas for the Domestic Violence Awareness Month. So, whereas domestic violence is a serious crime that affects people of all races, ages, gender, identities, socioeconomic levels, religions, backgrounds, beliefs, and abilities. Whereas in 2022, the Family Justice Center in Washington County provided 8,344 services to 4,537 survivors. Whereas our law enforcement officers put their lives at risk daily responding to domestic violence incidents, and the North Plains Police Department believes only a coordinated community effort will put a stop to this cycle of violence. And whereas Domestic Violence Awareness Month provides an excellent platform to show support for the domestic violence advocates, crisis hotline, staff, the victim service organizations, and law enforcement officers in our community, and provides the residents of Washington County the opportunity to learn more about preventing domestic violence and show support for the numerous organizations and individuals who provide critical advocacy, resources, hope, and assistance to victims. Now therefore, I, Terry Lenahan, Mayor of North Plains, Oregon, do hereby proclaim the month of October 2023 as Domestic Violence Awareness Month in North Plains. And for those online and in the audience that are not aware, North Plains has been supportive of the Family Justice Center since opening. And I want to say they've been open now for 5.5 years, something like that. And so at that time, each city in Washington County actually came together as a collective group and committed to financially supporting the Family Justice Center. Because as you know, many of you might be aware of, I mean, domestic violence affects, I'm sure has affected people we know, loved ones we know, our neighbors, and definitely folks that we do not know. But North Plains is committed to being a partner with the Family Justice Center, and I am proud to say that we are. So, and I'm very proud to read this proclamation and to sign this order today. Thank you. All right, moving on to our agenda. Item number 7 is our public comment period, and this is the time where we wish folks in the hall here and online wanting to comment on things, items not on our agenda. So at this time, is there anyone in Jesse Mays that wishes to speak on an item not on our agenda? Is there anyone online, Lori, or have you anyone submitted anything to you?
I did not receive anything prior to the meeting, and I don't see any hands up on the Zoom call.
All right, great. Thank you. I'll go ahead and move on then. Item number 8A, we have a public hearing this evening. We have had a public hearing ordinance number 491, amending the North Plains Municipal Code for clear vision areas. And I know that as actually this is a continuation of a public hearing. Lori, remind me, do you need to read anything?
I
prior
do
to-
not, because it
Thank
was
you.
left open from the
Okay,
original.
perfect. Just wanted to double check.
Mhm.
So at this time, we'll go ahead and enter our public hearing, the continuance of that public hearing, and I want to say it's 7:22 p.m. And so I think I'm going to go ahead now and turn this over to Steve.
Thank you, Mayor. Steve Miller, Planning Manager for the city. As you know, this is a continuance of a other continued hearing. So this is our third hearing now on this. And that's pretty understandable. It's a pretty difficult conversation to get through because there are some liability issues and some other concerns that both the public and the city council expressed through those previous two hearings. And so as a result of some of those concerns, as you may recall, we thought we may try an exemption route for certain lots to exempt them from some of the amendment, some of the new amendment language, but didn't feel that that was the appropriate course of action, that we might still have some potential liability going that route. So we rounded back with the city legal counsel, also consulted with Lennars, the applicant's legal counsel, to discuss alternatives to an exemption process. And what we came up with was what I have before you right now, which was to bring into the Clear Vision Code some definitions to identify what constitutes a public and private alley, what constitutes a public and private street for the purposes of the Clear Vision section. And then we further went down and updated where those standards would now apply. And as you'll see here, we're having them apply to public streets, where public alleys intersect with public streets. We also have it where public streets and public alleys intersect with private streets and private alleys. And all driveways providing vehicle access to a public street or a public alley intersecting with such public street and public alleys. So with this revision, what we did is, as you can see in the strikeout, we removed the provisions from applying to private alleys and the driveways that would be on a private alley. We went a little bit further into subsection A and added some additional language to clarify that on where it would apply and how it would be measured. We took that down a little bit further to subsection B, and the proposal was to strike the current subsection B from the code and replace it with a new subsection B, which again would address some of the liability concerns that some of the counselors expressed. So what subsection B is kind of getting at is identifying who would be responsible for the private streets and the private alleys, that burden would shift to the HOAs and any other entity that was responsible for a private street or a private alley. Sometimes, you know, these are so small that it's just a small group of homeowners and they don't necessarily form an HOA. It's just kind of in the bylaws, you will, for that small subdivision that, you know, the homeowners are responsible for the private street. So that is where we went. Another thing that we added back into the code was figure one. Figure one did not get brought over with the previous text amendment to the Clear Vision standards. I received a lot of questions about that from the Planning Commission. They expressed that they would like to see that back into the code. So we've added that for this current revision to the text amendment there. As some folks have expressed concerns about, you know, did the Planning Commission know what was happening since they recommended one thing and this has kind of moved a different direction since the recommendation. Staff did share with the Planning Commission that these changes were coming. We shared the whole depth of those changes. So they have seen all of what I just shared with you right here. I did not receive any responses to that email indicating any concerns or questions. So we did at least notify them that there were going to be some changes. The other thing, as you well know, this has been going on for about a year now, trying to come up with how to resolve this particular issue. And so in an effort to try and wrap this up tonight, city staff is asking to hold both the first and second reading tonight with an emergency clause. In order to do that, there would have to be a unanimous vote on the first reading in order for us to hold the second reading tonight as well and adopt it with an emergency clause. What that emergency clause would do is it would allow these new rules to take effect immediately, as opposed to a 30-day grace period by not adopting it with an emergency clause. And that's really it in a nutshell. Like I said, there's been a lot of work in trying to get to this point, trying to address everybody's concerns, trying to particularly address council's concern with liability to the city. And I think you never get something that makes everybody happy, but I think we're as close as we can get with these changes. And like I indicated, we did share this back with all the parties who are part of this in terms of the applicant and their legal counsel. And we did receive a nod that, yes, this does address our concerns. We are supportive of these revisions. There are folks here from the applicant's team who can share their thoughts on that as well. But at this point, I think I'll turn it back over to you, Mayor, and any questions that the council may have.
I'm gonna go to our counselors online first. So I have Counselor Martinez and Counselor Beaven. Are there any comments or questions that you would like to express?
No specific questions. I think I'm still concerned a little bit, and I apologize. I missed the very first hearing, so I didn't get to be a part of that very initial hearing where you guys all discussed this. But I'm still concerned of just kind of blanketing this and changing it for the city, because this would have changes happening in Sunset Ridge should they decide. And so I think it's still, yes, it might cover like the liability, but you still have the safety aspect for everyone. And I think blanketing that might be more damaging than good. Just there's a lot of kids. I know we've kind of discussed this and, you know, residents have discussed it and also reading the comments in the packet. But, you know, a lot of kiddos still play in those private alleys. You know, we kind of had that clear vision code for a reason and Lennar didn't abide by it. So I am concerned of just making it kind of a blanket for the whole city, especially for future developments as well, but more concerned of just safety for everyone overall.
I might be able to answer a little bit of that. As we've discussed along the way here with this process, for like a Sunset Ridge or even a Bryn Hill, they would have the ability to update their CCNRs if they did not want these rules to apply to their subdivision. So they could be more restrictive than what the city code is by bringing some type of standard into their CCNRs that address their private alleys, saying that they actually want some standard there to provide visual sight onto their driveways. So that is something that those subdivisions could do by themselves. The other thing is we only have 2 subdivisions right now in the city that have private alleys, which is Sunset Ridge and Bryn Hill. We don't have any other private alleyways within the city. There are a couple private streets within the city, but not any other private alleyways. And so in terms of, you know, the citywide significance, it is fairly contained to just those 2 new subdivisions. As far as future subdivisions, you know, on land that could come into the UGB expansion, there is opportunities to work with those developers to see if there are some ideas that they might entertain, either through an annexation agreement, through the master planning of the subdivisions and whatnot. So I'm not saying they would be agreeable to those things, but it does give the city an opportunity to work with them to see if they might, you know, entertain some ideas if we feel that some of their alleys might not be as safe as they could be. So it's not that we wouldn't still want to work with folks, but I think in terms of a solution for what we're dealing with right now, this seems to be one that that helps resolve the matter.
Counselor Martinez, I hope you heard all of that. And I didn't know if you had any other remarks or comments about that.
No, again, I just, you know, I think this was Lennar initial mistake. It wasn't our fault. And so to change and amend our city code you know, like I said, blanket it. I'm just not sure that that's the best remedy to take either.
I don't want to point fingers, but there is responsibility on the city's part as well. It wasn't just one-sided.
Councilor Payton, do you have any thoughts or remarks?
Yeah, thank you so much. I'm no pun intended, but I'm super on the fence as well about this. Because I think I empathize with the homeowners in Lennar that are being affected by this. And I absolutely see how this might feel like a bait and switch to those homeowners and, especially to some homeowners who are in limbo with a construction project. So I feel that part of it. However, I also think about what happens 2 years from now if a child dies as a result of, a code that we changed because this allowed a homeowner in Sunset Ridge to build out a fence within that clear vision standard. And also having served on HOA boards in the past, I can tell you it's not as easy to change the bylaws and CC&Rs, and there's a cost associated with that, and lawyers and et cetera, et cetera. So I totally hear Steve mentioning, it's the HOA can change that, but I know the reality of that, that the discussion we're having here tonight can definitely get lost in translation if we're talking to another HOA, let's say Sunset Ridge 1 or 2. So that being said, I would love to find something that agrees for everyone. But I too am also on the fence of, does this suit everyone or does this suit the homeowners of Bryn Hill who've been affected by this? And Steve, I'm just going to ask one more time. I know in previous meetings I had asked, can we have an option A, option B, option C? And I know we had talked about this at the last council meeting and thought we had gotten to a consensus, but then also thinking it through and that it's a blanket across the whole city. And who knows what'll happen 10, 15 years from now when we have a UGB expansion potentially. And, maybe Andy's not here or Steve's not here to carry on this message. Just like it got lost in translation with that lookbook with Bryn Hill. So I'm just going to ask for the sake of asking, is there any other option that does not blanket across the whole city, but we can still meet in the middle so these homeowners in Bryn Hill are not affected?
I can't say that there couldn't be another option. Obviously, we could craft language all day long. Lawyers are good at that, and that's my job as well. I'm not sure if we, again, as you acknowledge, it's hard to come up with something that's going to make everybody happy. I don't know. Obviously, these changes might not make everybody happy, but in terms of the concerns that were expressed in both the first and second hearings, this seems to get at those concerns. But again, it is a safety measure that we're amending. And so I think that's the reason why it's hard to get everybody to agree on those changes, because at the end of the day, we are talking safety.
Absolutely. Thank you. And I just would love to hear the consensus as well from the rest of the group. Thank you.
Councilor Payton.
There's been a question about redacting in red. I just want to make it clear. That the houses from the private area going into the public street have to abide by the clear vision standard.
That's correct. The way it's written right now is those private alleys or private streets that intersect with a public street would have to maintain clear vision areas at those intersection points.
It's 20 feet, right?
It's 20 feet, correct. Both down the alley and then down the private street. That's how you get that triangle.
Right.
If I scroll down here a little bit more, that you can see on the figure 1. So you can see it would be 20 feet in both directions to get the triangle, and then that would be the protected area. And you can see that here as well.
Are we doing any kind of messages? Have we reached out to any of the HOAs that are going to be affected by this that are current here? The future ones are going to have to figure that out. But have we reached out at all to the HOAs currently?
We mailed notice to all the property owners within Sunset Ridge and Bryn Hill.
Mailing notices.
And I do believe the HOAs were included in that mailing as well.
Nobody out there. Speak of. I disagree. They've had plenty of notice.
We didn't reach out to any of the HOA presidents or vice presidents or anything, or executive secretaries.
What I'm saying is, if I recall correctly, the HOAs were included in that mailing list that we mailed out to. Obviously, Lennar's HOA was well aware of this, but we did mail to the HOA address that we had for Sunset Ridge as well. And I know that Don Weber, as we know who he is, I'll share his name. He did participate by submitting a letter, and he also said he followed through with speaking with the HOA. So I do believe Sunset Ridge did get notice to the HOA.
Okay, thanks.
Any other comments or questions on this?
You know, I don't think anybody's happy with the situation that we got ourselves into. But I think what we've got here is the best that we're gonna get for the homeowners. Like I said, I'm not happy with it, but I think this is the best we can do. I feel for the residents that bought into Lennar. And I think they knowingly did something they know with all the houses they built, it's a nationwide company. And so I think they cut a corner here they shouldn't have.
I had a question about the privatization of like a street in an alleyway. I know that we have several private streets in North Plains. And they're marked accordingly, like they, they have a sign, on, it might be like on the, underneath the street name, that sort of thing. Is there any way to, mark those private alleyways as a private alleyway, like a private street or a private space? Just in my mind, so people can see that and say, oh, that's not a thoroughfare. Does that make sense?
I understand what you're saying, from a design perspective, probably from a home builder perspective. I don't, signage is not something that's really liked. You don't want to see all the rows of no parking signs. They tend to get painted on, they get hit by cars, they get destroyed essentially over time. And so more signs tend to lead to more vandalism and potential replacement of signage and whatnot. So I know that the homeowners or the builders would like to not see many signs. Is it something, we could require with the future master plan? We could ask for that type of signage. I'm just not sure I would see the benefit to it. Usually when people pull into a subdivision, they see a 20-foot wide street, they tend to know that that is a private alley. But I agree that some folks may not. So in terms of doing something now with the Lennar project, I don't think we would have the ability to come back now and say, hey, you've got to go out and sign all your alleyways as private alleys. But it certainly is a conversation we could have.
Well, is it something that the HOA then could take up?
They would be able to do that if they wanted to. We would want to work with them a little bit to understand, what is it going to say? Where's it going to go? How many signs, that type of thing. But, it certainly is something they could take under consideration.
Thank you.
Yes.
Councilor Kendall or Councilor Shelby, do you have any last remarks?
I kind of agree with Ricky, I don't like it. So Lennar, this doesn't pertain to this, anything here in the city, right? Just the Lennar project, right? This issue. It doesn't pertain to anything in North Plains, full North Plains.
No, this is.
There's no nothing. Yeah, it's because the small world, I think we'll have to. I don't like it, but we're here and I don't like alley. There's a lot of problem for a lot of people. And I don't want to ever see that built North Plains again. Thank you.
I'm gonna make it brief. I think what we have revised, in my mind, is the best resolution, probably the most reasonable resolution, probably the most sensible resolution. I think it's valid, it's sound, and from the standpoint of liability, it shifts the liability where it should be. Frankly, I have no concerns about it. I don't think it's giving anybody anything from the standpoint of what that responsibility is. And my chief concern had a lot to do with regulating that and the acceptance of the liability that's associated with it. And I just think it's a risk that we don't need to be taking on. And so therefore, that's why I'm satisfied with the amendments that have been put forth in the code.
For comment, I am also satisfied with the amendments as they are. It's good that we acknowledge it's a private road, and they have their own maintenance, they have their own liability that's concerned. You HOAs have to respond to that. Whether HOAs are hard to wrangle, push cats, or it costs money to do that, that's the side point. This is protecting the city from what we need to have, it's allowing the homeowners the chance to do what they want to do. If the HOAs want to have large fences, okay. If they don't, okay. I'm glad it's out of our hands, and I think it's appropriate that it's out of our hands.
Councilor Martinez.
I was just gonna say, and with, you know, the safety piece, just so many of those homes, they're just so darn close together. So, you know, if say a kiddo or whatever, someone's walking by or whatnot, they're just so close together that you just don't have that same buffer. So I think in amending this and doing that, you're kind of, well, one, you're allowing the HOA to obviously, you know, kind of make the rules of that and the homeowner, but I think it's really just going to be, you know, unsafe for individuals, especially like how those rear loading ones, and they're just so darn close together, unfortunately. Like even if a kid's playing, they're like practically in the other person's area anyways, and you know, other parts of the city and stuff, and maybe even, you know, where there's not HOA, there's at least kind of the yard buffer and whatnot to kind of give it more of a parameter, I guess.
I see that we also have a person's hand raised.
They would have to wait until after you get through the applicant, and then when you start taking opposition and proponents, that would be their time.
Thank you. Before I call the applicant, are there any other comments or questions? All right, would you like to come forward? And please state your name and address for the record.
Certainly. Thank you, Mayor. My name is Garrett Stevenson. I'm an attorney for Lennar. My address is 1211 Southwest Fifth Avenue, Suite 1900, Portland, Oregon 97204. I want to start by thanking all of you for sticking with us. This is now my fourth time in this room to discuss this particular code amendment, and for most of you, it's your third. And I understand that this has not been an easy process and that it's not an easy decision. I think you've all been very thoughtful in how you approach the issue, regardless of how it comes out. The other thing I would say is that before I get into any substantive testimony, is we'd really like to have a final vote, or at least an initial reading tonight. I think that we went now through 3 versions of this, and I want to just make an observation here that this particular version, and going back to what I said, I think in the first hearing, I think a lot of what happened here is because the original version of this code was not extremely clear how it would relate to single dwellings on alleys. I mean, obviously, if you have an alley that comes out and hits a road, everybody knew there needed to be a clear vision triangle there. But it is not universal that people can only have 3-foot tall fences abutting alleys. And I think that what you have here, which by the way, the city drafted, we did not. I think what you have here is immensely more clear than what the code was before. And so I think that, you know, this is more than just a Band-Aid for the Lennar homeowners and for Lennar. I think this will make application of this code a lot clearer, and you know, to the extent there's a safety issue here, I think this will improve things, not make things worse. So I just want to say that, and I would commend your planning staff and your city attorney for drafting this language, because now when anybody looks at it, at least now when I look at it, I know where we need to have those clear vision triangles and where we don't. And I think that that's going to be a benefit to any project coming in the future. Mayor, you asked about signage, and I want to be clear. I think that the discussion about private versus public is really not so much who can travel over those ways, but who is responsible if there is an incident. And the way it works is that if you have a private street, whoever owns a private street is subject to premises liability for anything that happens there. And the intent of this code, as I understand it from your city staff, was to be very, very clear that if it's a private alley and there's an incident there, that the city does not have premises liability. And so I don't think, having driven out through some of these and gone into, I doubt that people are going to be dissuaded from traveling through there one way or the other if it says private, which is why we didn't propose to have that signage there. Alleys typically see very, very low vehicle speeds because they're so narrow. As far as safety issues, all I can speak for at this point is the testimony I heard throughout this process, and every homeowner from the Brent Hill neighborhood, including many who had children, testified in favor of this. I only know of one individual who testified against it. And so, at least as far as those parents are concerned, this is a good thing. And the reason why is because they want to have backyards that have typical height fences, so they can have a dog that can't jump over the street, that if they have little kids, they can't easily climb over the fence. And so I think that it's not as clear cut as you might just assume on the safety side, because a taller fence tends to keep the little ones inside of the backyard. And having a 3 and a 6-year-old myself, I can attest to that. So I just wanted to point that out. This has broad support from virtually everybody who's appeared. At the last meeting we had, the discussion basically appeared to look like we had a resolution here. And I got to tell you, the relief in the room amongst the homeowners was palpable. And that's a testament to you guys being responsive to the needs that those folks have raised, as Lennar has raised. And I think that those folks were very, very happy in the concept that we outlined at the last meeting. And I'd really encourage the city council to adopt what's before you tonight. I'm happy to answer any questions if you have.
Thank you very much. Any questions for council?
No, I agree with him. It's a bigger safety issue if it's a 3-foot fence. Because kids will do what kids do. So I think that's a foot fence makes, to me, not a lot of sense. It really doesn't keep anything in. Plus, it's a safety issue if somebody sees what you got in your yard, you can get in to steal something.
Privacy, yeah, livability, sure. Councilor Page?
I already spoke before that. I totally agree with this proposal. I think these are the right thing to do for many reasons. The homeowners bought something, they want that thing, and I think our code was not correct. It's private, it's a liability on the private owners. The city is still concerned by having it 20 feet from the public road. Everything about this is a way. I'm not with
that. Any additional comments?
Mayor, if there are no questions for me, I'm going to conclude the applicant's testimony in this matter. Thank you.
Thank you. So now can I?
If that's the end of the applicants, we can go on to proponents.
Okay. Anyone, I think you live in the Greenville area. Is this something that you wish to speak on, or I know you've spoken before, but yeah.
Lately, this is our mental one with us Drive. Yes, I think we're super excited about it, as everybody pointed out, the 3-foot fence is really not safe for our sons, it can be their yard. So having a 6-foot fence, while I understand the concerns about driving in the alley, it's more concerning about the fence out into the road while cars are driving through. I think the only really biggest issue that remains for us, if I made a 3-foot fence, then it's unclear if they put it back at 6 feet, and that would be a plus for us. And
have you talked to
with that,
have you talked to Lennar about If it passes, we'll give you a.
We have tried to before we closed, and no one would get back to us. He doesn't live in my house, we have money.
I know it's still in there. I think they put up your family when they did bring it from 6 to 10 from what I saw.
So we had a 6 foot fence, and then the city said that they couldn't get the fence until they had it done for that reason. But then this city allowed the other 6 foot fences to stay while there was resolution reached. So we're in this limbo window where we had a 6 foot fence and then it became 3 feet. And now we're. Thank you. Thank you very much. Jeremy Anderson, I see your hand is raised. Would you like to speak?
Yes, thank you. Can you hear me?
Yes, sir.
Great, thank you. Yeah, I'd just like to point out, I think at a high level that to make a nod to the way that our country exists, that we were a constitutional republic, and the role of government is not necessarily to try to define every possible scenario, but to set the framework so that the local government and the community can govern itself. I think that what's been proposed is appropriate to allow the Bryn Hill community to govern itself in a way that's specific to Bryn Hill, and for the Sunset Hill community to govern itself in the same way, as well as the other members of our community. And I would say I'll kind of point as well, I'm a little concerned. We're 8 months into this, almost a year now. And there's been some conversation lately about the expansion of our city, conversations around the UGB and so forth. And I wonder what happens when the next issue like this comes up after we've doubled in size. I would definitely like to see us be a little bit more efficient in our government to trust the community members rather than thinking that we at the city level need to try to define everything at every level of the community. Thank you.
Thank you very much. All right. Next step, I mean, are there any other comments, I think, from just the council, anything else, last minute thoughts?
If this is where we're at, it looks like everybody who has spoken. You can close the hearing.
Okay.
Have any discussions, any deliberations, and then take a vote.
All right. If there are no other discussions from the council, any other questions or comments, I'll go ahead and close the public hearing at 7:54. And I know that this has been a long journey, and it's been my experience that the planning commission, the council, the residents, staff, legal have been working arduously to try to find a resolution for this. I think the liability issue has been addressed for me. And I do walk in that community, and I have walked down those particular areas. And the sense that I get is if I had a home there, I would definitely want a 6 foot fence, not a 3 foot fence, because of privacy. Obviously, I respect the clear vision on the corners of the road as it should be. So I know that I'm probably going to be in support of this ordinance. I also want to be clear that what is before us, a couple things. The current ordinance that was in our packet, I did find, thanks to Councilor Sheldon's eagle eye, he did find a few typos in the actual ordinance 491. And the actual ordinance does read with the correct city file number TA02-060, and it also references a correct exhibit D instead of exhibit C, as in Charlie. So I just want to make you all aware that that ordinance, actually, the language in the ordinance has been corrected and updated, and I do have a copy here of those corrections.
Thank you, Mayor. I forgot that, so thank you.
Yeah, you bet. So what's being asked also before us, we are looking at a first reading of this particular ordinance, if that's the direction of this motion, but keep in mind that in order to read it for a second reading and declare an emergency, it does need a consensus of all, needs to be completely approved by the entire body, the entire council. If there is and correct me if I'm wrong, Steve, but if there is a nay vote on the first motion, then we can just do first reading by title only and then have to come back at our next city council meeting for second reading and so on and so forth, correct?
That is correct. If for some reason it's not unanimous on the first reading, then we would just be coming back for a second reading. If it is unanimous tonight on the first reading, you have the ability to call the second reading and adopt it with an emergency clause tonight.
Okay, great. All right, any other comments or questions before I ask for a motion?
So just the motion here is correct, reading the first time.
In the
I'm sorry.
packet?
I believe we had a sample motion in there that included the emergency clause with it, and at this time, yes, if that is your proposal, that's what you would read.
I would like to use that as a start. First off, it has been, before I do this, it has been a while. Just take a long process to do it. And this is new to us. We had to check and recheck and triple check and discuss it. But it's been done. And now this needs to be done. Because we have it under our belt, we know that we know the method to do these things. So in the future, these will be done much quicker, I hope, because it's very specific. I move to adopt the planning commission recommendation to approve the application of the amended North Plains Municipal Code section 155.656 with modifications and to declare an emergency. The ordinance number 491 may become effective immediately. Those can start working.
I'll second that.
Do we need to include first reading?
No.
I thought that's what she didn't say that.
No, did you include first reading? Like,
No, I asked whether we need to do a first reading, but which one was fine.
Yes, this is the first reading. Yes, that you're making it.
This is the first reading then.
okay. So amend your motion to include first reading by title only.
I don't know.
Second.
All right, we have a first and a second. Any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed say nay.
Nay.
Right, so I'm gonna call for a vote. So all the ayes, Councilor Papeman, what was your vote? Thank you. Councilor Smith?
Aye.
Councilor Page?
A vigorous aye.
Councilor Kendall?
Aye.
Councilor Sheldon?
Aye.
Mayor Linehan is an aye, and those opposed, nay vote. Councilor Martinez?
Nay.
Thank you. Lori? Got it, good? All right. So, ordinance number 491 is an ordinance amending section 155.656 of the North Plains Municipal Code regarding clear vision areas and declaring. And I'm not, no, let me backtrack, backspace. Clear vision areas, period.
So this is just approving the first reading.
This is the first reading.
Yes.
So, we have that motion. Now, I need a motion to accept the first reading.
Did you read the whole thing? The title?
I read the title.
Sorry.
Yeah.
I
Yes,
was writing it.
I'm sorry. Yeah.
Okay.
I'll move to approve first reading of ordinance 491.
Councilor Sheldon has first, Councilor Smith, I think was the second, correct?
Correct.
All right, any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye. Aye.
Any opposed say nay.
Nay.
All right, call for the vote. Counselor Pippen,
Aye.
Counselor Smith,
Aye.
Counselor Page,
Aye.
Counselor Kindle,
Aye.
Counselor Sheldon,
Aye.
Counselor Martinez,
Nay.
and Mayor Linehan is an aye. Thank you.
That's it. No
That's
more
it for now.
adoption,
Yeah,
will
we'll
the
be
second reading.
back in 2 weeks for the second reading.
Thank you. All right, so we'll
And-
bring this back, I think it's the October 16th for the second reading. So thank you all, really appreciate it. Thank you for your work. All right, so the rest of the agenda is keep light and direct, nothing to report for new business, any unfinished business to report. The city manager report is in our packet. I know that Andy is away, but Bill, is there anything? I just thought maybe I'd defer to you to see if there was anything that you wish to highlight on either Andy's report or just in general.
Mayor, with all due respect, I have nothing to add to what Andy's reported.
Wanted to make that. Thank you, appreciate that. Any council reports? Councilor Smith.
I did attend the library one, but you know what we talked about. But I did ask if you had anybody object to certain books, and they had no object from anybody on a banned book, so. I know she mentioned the 98 state, it seemed pretty odd. With stuff else. For us having, I'm not sure if people realize they can make objections or not, I don't know. So far, we have none.
Okay. Any other council reports? Council Kidney.
Thank you. Today we had a North Plains Historical Society meeting. And we had 4 people, including myself, that were around, their dads were around when this fire department was built in 1951. That's when that building was built. So that's 50, 49, and 68 years ago. So 3 of the fellows were, their dads were involved in that, not my dad. Those 3, so we had a lot of very good roundtable discussion. It was really good. A lot of people really enjoyed it, so it was nice that we got some of that information put together before we died. So it was good to have that, and there was a few people there that worked there today were sick, so it was just a good discussion, and everybody enjoyed it, so I'm glad that happened. So now we know when the department was there, and the first mayor was also the first fire chief, Mr. I think it was Steve's, then Louis Wentz. And then both Mr. Steve's son was there, and Lord Wentz was there too. So that was neat to see those 2 now. That was good. Fantastic. I'd be part of it.
Good deal.
One more thing.
Sure, go ahead.
I did attend our homeowners association picnic or party we had. There must have been about 100 at least. I'm surprised how many kids we've never seen. They're on the side. But I was really surprised how many kids are in both neighborhoods, these 1 and 2. I did get a lot of people come up to me and ask questions. And I realized if it wasn't for misinformation, there's no information. So, and even explaining sometimes, they still don't understand. But just interesting.
Councilor Page, looks like you want to say something.
I'm debating whether I should speak up or not, or take it offline. And I think I take offline.
Okay. Councilor Martinez or Councilor Pippen, and anything to share?
Not council reports, but I was wondering, and maybe this is more public works, but I know they'll start doing those leaf pickups sooner than later. But I was wondering if the stretch along Pacific, between Glencoe and 307, that there kind of has that like barricade for the pathway, and it tends to kind of get overlooked with just kind of the rubbish and like debris, and some of the trees are really low hanging. I just wanted to see if they could, when they kind of circle around, or I don't know how often they go around and do their cleanups, but if they can kind of look at that area and try to clean the actual like walking pathway, because it is kind of hard, even as like all those low hanging trees have the pine needles and stuff, those bigger ones, it makes it kind of hard to walk or bike on that little stretch of the pathway.
I would hope that you relay that back to Dustin. Okay, great. I wanna recognize, Lori. I think you've been with the city for 7 years now.
Is that all? It seems like 70. Yes, 7. Last week was my 7th year.
Yeah, well, congratulations. I remember when you came on board, you were a bit of a deer to the headlights.
I was.
But I just want to say how much I appreciate watching you grow over 7 years in your role as city recorder. And I know herding us cats, and I know can be really tough sometimes when you're, staff and volunteers and, residents and rules and regulations and all that sort of thing. But I think that you do it with grace and elegance. And I just want to say thank you very much.
Thank you. I love it. Yeah.
Good.
Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah.
Thank you for putting me on. Bullets and shots.
And also I want to give Rowan an opportunity to speak this evening. I know I'm kind of throwing you a bit of a curveball, but we had an opportunity to chat just briefly before our meeting. And you did mention a project that you're working on.
Yeah, so being here as a Rare AmeriCorps member, doing downtown work, one of the things that in my experience I found to be most important is getting people downtown and keeping them downtown. And I'm working on a couple prospects for events throughout the summer, one of which is working with our local farmers to get a farmers market back in North Plains, which I know we used to have. I'd love to see that revived. And get local food while we're in the process of waiting for a grocery to come in, as well as get people downtown, get people excited about local business and supporting the businesses that we do have, as well as creating an environment that will encourage new businesses and more investment to come in, making our community look like a viable economic opportunity for them.
Well, we look forward to your work. I look forward to working with you. So, and I will definitely email you that list to share with the chamber one day. So I promise. Also wanted to just make sure that you're aware, I'm sure you saw Andy's email about Congresswoman Bonamici's having an event on Thursday, October 5th, but you may have also gotten an email today that it's been rescheduled. So I believe that's in November. Was it November the 9th? It's at Evergreen. I know that I would like to attend, and I certainly would encourage all of you or whoever can go. We can certainly carpool or meet there, but I would really encourage you to consider going to that event with Bonamici on November the 9th. Before we close for the evening, I know Councilor Sheldon, anything to report or anything pressing on?
No, not that I can think of.
Okay. All right. Last chance, councilors. All right, well, have a wonderful evening, and I'll go ahead and close our meeting this evening at 8:10. Thank you all. Good night.